Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, Jimmy G is on the shelf. But for how long? That and a whole lot more is coming up on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 26, 2023.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest edition of the show. Of course, if you're checking us out on YouTube, many thanks to you, and many thanks to my man Ari at Ari Produces on Twitter. Does a great job each and every day making sure we're up on YouTube, and we definitely appreciate him. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can at your boy Q254. Maybe you want to chime in on the show, you can do it by way of Twitter or the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. That's 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, your calls and texts are coming up in segment number 3 of today's show. Segment number 2, we'll talk about Jimmy G, and we'll talk about the rankings. I talked about it in pretty good detail on Thursday's show from Pro Football Focus. They had him ranked 24th, and I was caught off guard by that. I was pretty surprised by that, but on my radio show on Thursday, I had Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus on, so he kind of broke it down, explained the rankings a little bit, and even he would have ranked Jimmy G a little bit higher, but you'll hear that coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and really, when it comes to the news and the notes, it's about Jimmy G as well. We had an opportunity to be at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center, Raiders HQ, on Thursday, the first OTA session that we were actually able to be there and observe and check it out and see the whole practice and talk to head coach Josh McDaniels and talk to multiple players like Davante Adams, like Marcus Epps, and also Max Crosby. So it was good to be back in the building. We hadn't been in the building, Raider Nation. Let me just let it be known. We had not been in the building since the draft got wrapped up. Once they finished up with the draft and everything, it was basically sayonara, see ya, done deal records, right? Until we got the opportunity to be out there at OTAs. We weren't able to be there for rookie minicamp. We haven't been there at all for OTAs until Thursday. That was our first opportunity. Now, we will get another opportunity next week. Then, of course, mandatory minicamp comes up June 6th through the 8th. We'll be there for that. And then I think there's one more date after that, and then it's a wrap. Then it's closed on down until training camp. So, when a lot of people reached out and said, well, how come you didn't know this? How come you didn't know that? How come, nobody's heard anything about Jimmy G until now? Raider Nation, we haven't been around the team at all, right? We've been talking about just things that we've been seeing or hearing from a distance, and that's really it. And so what am I talking about when it comes to Jimmy G? Well, we found out from head coach Josh McDaniels on Thursday morning. He met with us about 9 a.m. Pacific time. We heard from him. Vinny Bonsignore asked the question, has Jimmy G been cleared? Is he ready to go for OTAs? Because we were going to go out there and check him out for practice for a couple hours. And Josh McDaniels let us know he wasn't going to be there. And no, he has not been cleared medically yet from his foot injury that he had with San Francisco. And once he said that, it made all the sense in the world why, if you go back to when he was supposed to sign his contract and meet with the media the first time, it got pushed back another day. If you think back to the injury that he had when he was with San Francisco, they all thought he was going to have surgery or he was supposed to have surgery, but he didn't have surgery because he was hoping that he was going to have an opportunity to come back at some point in the season, and they basically said, no, you don't need surgery, so he didn't go and have it. Well, obviously now that we know he's not ready for OTAs, he hasn't been cleared yet, we don't know when he's going to actually get out there and practice. Now it obviously makes sense that when the Raiders put him through a physical, they said, yeah, you're probably going to need surgery. So they went and had surgery, or he had surgery, and he's going through the process. So Vinny Bonsignore asked the question. Here's head coach Josh McDaniels talking about no, Jimmy G will not be seen at OTAs, and then just talks about the process of the rehab, which Jimmy G and others is going through. Here's head coach Josh McDaniels from Thursday.
You won't see him today. There's a number of guys that you're not going to see. Again, you'll see him. I mean, I'm not going to run down a list every time here, but no, he's going through his process just like we knew he would. Nothing has happened that would surprise us based on, the information we had. Same thing with Tyree. Again, there's a number of guys you're not going to see out there today. So, rehabbing the things that they're rehabbing. And again, we know we don't play a game for over 100 days. So, they're doing everything they can do to get right. And when they're all ready to go, then eventually they'll be back on the field.
you think would be waited until training camp for Jimmy D?
Could be. I mean, I'd say with all these guys, it's about the same. Like I said, when they're ready, some of them may be ready, before the spring is over. Some of them may not, And again, we're always going to err at this time of the year on being smart. We don't play a football game till, like I said, 3.5 months. So to try to rush them out there, to get them out there in May, I mean, it's a poor decision. So doing a great job. All these guys are doing a great job with what they can do in terms of the rehab. They're in all the meetings, all the football things that they can do that, aren't jeopardizing anybody's ability to be ready to go here for the season. They're doing all those things. And the guys that aren't out there, like I said, they'll just, as soon as they're ready, they'll be there.
So there you go. Head coach Josh McDaniels on, the fact that Jimmy G and others, that he made sure to throw that in there, like Tyree Wilson, the first-round pick out of Texas Tech. They're going through the rehab process. There's other guys that weren't out at practice on Thursday that he said is going through the rehab process as well. Of course, guys like Josh Jacobs don't have a contract, so he wasn't out there. Hunter Renfrow, he wasn't out there either. Of course, he's been in a lot of conversation and speculation about trades. He wasn't out there practicing on Thursday. But again, it was voluntary, so don't take too much into that either. So it's just, again, we're trying to gather as much information in a very small period of time with not really a lot of information just being volunteered to us. So there you go. Jimmy G, he's on the shelf. And the thing about it is no one really knows for how long. Like you heard the follow-up there where Vinny said, could it be something that goes into training camp or, be available for training camp? And head coach Josh McDaniels said, yeah, he could be available for training camp, or maybe he's not. Right? I mean, again, nobody really knows. Everything that it sounds like is that he'll be ready for training camp. At least that's the feeling that I got from people as we were standing out around practice, and some people that work with the Raiders were talking to us just off the side and off the record. It sounds like he's going to be available for training camp, which is a good thing. That's a blessing, right? I mean, he's got to be out there. Again, this is OTAs. It's not like, just like Josh McDaniels said, they don't play for 3.5 months. It's over 100 days away before they actually have to be on the field playing a game. So OTAs aren't 100% necessary. If they were, they wouldn't be voluntary. So it's not 100% necessary for him anyway, but you really hope that the first day of training camp, he's available. If he's not, then all of a sudden you start looking at the clock and you start panicking a little bit, wondering, okay, when is QB1 going to be ready? So on Thursday, we saw a lot of Brian Hoyer, we saw a lot of Aiden O'Connell, and we saw a lot of Chase Garbers. And that's what it's going to be until Jimmy G is available to come back. So for me, a guy that's always been concerned about Jimmy G and his availability, I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic. Again, I'm optimistic that he'll return for training camp, but I'm still cautious because it's Jimmy G and we know his injury history. So, a little bit of concern. I wouldn't say that I'm hitting the panic button by no means. Right now, again, if we get to training camp and he's not available to start training camp, then we get a week or two in and he's still not available, then I'm going to say, okay, now what, right? I mean, then all of a sudden you're thinking about maybe Aiden O'Connell does see the field sometime in 2023. Ideally, you don't want to see any of the backups in 2023, but it feels like the inevitable. And, of course, things didn't get off to a good start with Jimmy G not being available just yet. So that was really the big news that came out of OTAs on Thursday. Of course, like I said, it was nice to be back out there and just see football activities going on. A little side note, I put a video out on Twitter at your boy Q254 of some wide receiver drills going on. And NFL Network hit me up. They sent me a tweet, a direct message, and said, hey, can we use this on our show? We'll give you credit for it. I was like, yeah, that's cool, no problem. So, of course, I was watching NFL Network for Total Access. I do it all the time. It's one of my favorite channels between that and ESPN. And all of a sudden, sure enough, I look up, and it was funny. It was right during my radio show as well. I did the radio show from the house on Thursday from my home studio, and I look up, and all of a sudden, boom, there's my video. There's my name right there in the corner on NFL Network. So that was kind of cool. But it was just it was great being out there and just seeing football activities, see guys like Davante Adams out there putting in work, see guys like Michael Mayer. That's a big dude. That's a really big dude. He's a monster. I'm excited to see what he's going to do during training camp and preseason. Thayer Munford, he's a guy that looked really big. He looks like he's gained some size, gained some weight, just in healthy weight, not sloppy weight, but healthy weight. There was a nice amount of players out there it looked like for the majority, it was basically a full house. Now, again, the guys like Josh Jacobs weren't there. Hunter Renfrow wasn't there. Trayvon Merrick wasn't there. There was probably at least 5 or 6 guys that were notable that weren't there, including Jimmy G. But for the most part, man, they had 3 football fields going. Max Crosby, he was still Max Crosby, looked the same. A lot of the new guys on the team, the free agents, they were there. So, again, it looked like they had a pretty good buy-in and guys there ready to work. So I think that's a good step. But, again, it's only May, and they got a long ways to go. And we'll learn a lot more about this team during mandatory training camp and, more importantly, or mandatory minicamp, and then, more importantly, during training camp. Now, I mentioned Davante Adams. Of course, there was the article in The Ringer with Miran Fader, who really, it's funny. It was a great article, and everyone lost their mind, and you saw people nationally like Colin Cowherd saying that Davante Adams is upset and he's going to be traded to the Jets and this, that, and the other. Just all kind of just stuff against, throwing stuff against the wall, hoping it sticks. Really like off-season conversation because there's nothing else. But, I had Miran Fader on my radio show, and then I brought that interview to the podcast. So it's really been a no subject for me. After that, hey, this is the context. This is what she was talking about. This is what Davante was talking about. And when I heard that interview, when I did that interview and then put it on the podcast, I thought, end of subject. Well, obviously it's not the end of subject until you hear from Davante Adams. He did the podcast with Brandon Marshall, the I Am Athlete. I wasn't a big fan of it just because the audio quality wasn't great. But he's talked. He was the first player to speak with us at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center right after practice. And it was a matter of fact, he wanted to go out there and speak. And I don't want to say to set the record straight because he even mentions that it's not setting the record straight, but he wanted to speak and get a little something off his chest. So when Davante met with us, Vinny Bonsignore, again, I feel like he's grandfathered in to ask the first question all the time. It's just kind of that's the situation, and that's okay. He asked him, hey, would you like to set the record straight as far as that piece on The Ringer? A very detailed answer here from Davante Adams.
Well, it's not really setting the record straight. I think a lot of things get taken out of context when you don't have an interview to look at or people don't know the full story. So at the end of the day, there's going to be opinions and there's going to be, you're not always going to see things the exact same way, but when you've earned a right to have an opinion or you see things a certain way, or even, going into the operation this offseason, obviously, I made poke fun at having Aaron here a lot, and why would I not talk about having, best quarterback to play the game and a guy who I have a lot of history with. So that's who I had on my mind initially. So, that was never a slight at Jimmy. I didn't even know we were, pursuing Jimmy. So it had nothing to do with any of that. And then obviously I put something on social media saying, don't hit me up. Don't stop hitting me up if I haven't talked to you recently. Don't hit me up about this stuff. And I already said what that was about. That was clearing up the whole, me just getting bombarded with messages like, oh, what's going on? How you feel about this and this and that? So, that could have been anybody. But at the end of the day, like I said a couple times now, I'm excited to get to work with, the new guys. And Jimmy's a great guy. Love him to death. I didn't know him very well before he got here, but getting to work together a little bit, be around each other, getting to know him. He's a great guy, and definitely excited to get to work with him and everybody else that's in here. As far as the front office, I haven't had a relationship in the past. This is 10 years for me in this game, and I haven't had a relationship like what I have with those guys. So everything's get taken out of context. I wouldn't be here. I told you guys right after the Derek thing, I was here to stay and I wasn't going anywhere. So you can grab something and run with it if you want, just to get clicks, and that's what people often do with me and things that I say, whether I misspeak or if I speak up. But at the end of the day, I'm a Raider, and I'm excited to be here. I love my head coach, and I love the general manager here and everybody. From the top to the bottom. So I have no reason to lie. One thing I don't do is BS, so I'm not gonna make anything up when it comes to that. I'd rather keep my mouth closed if I have negative things to say. But when I say that these are some good men in this place that I really value the relationship that I have with them, I mean that. So. That's about all that needs to be said for that.
So that's the one thing that I really like and appreciate about Davante, and that's how he was all year last year. Whether it was after a win, after a loss, whatever the case may be, he would talk with us and he would give us very detailed answers. He was always very accountable, and that's what he's being right there. And, he has no problem with head coach Josh McDaniels. He has no problem with Dave Ziegler. Again, a lot of people just took the conversation and what he had to say and ran with it. after I talked to the author of the piece on The Ringer, I was good. I was absolutely good. And, Davante brought up, and you heard him talk about that he had never been in a position where his voice mattered. Not like in Green Bay, they were like, Davante, shut up, just play ball. And no, it wasn't like that. But here with the Raiders, I mean, he's the face of the franchise. He's the superstar. He's a guy that, his opinion does matter. He has, a C on his chest. He's a guy that can go to Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels and say, hey, I think that we should do this. I think we should do that. And it doesn't mean that they're going to listen to him and they're going to do what he says, but they'll listen to what he has to say. Then, like I said, it's not like they're going to react and say, okay, hey, Davante wants to do it, so let's do it. But at least his voice being heard matters. And so here's Davante Adams talking about being able to voice his opinion and thoughts, and this is really the first time that's ever happened in his career.
I've never been encouraged to speak up and share my feelings with the organization the way I have with these two guys. I mean, and I felt that from the first time that I got the call from them right after getting traded, that's the type of, environment I was going to be coming into, just based off of what they heard about me, the respect they have for the things I've done on the field. And, I try to give them that respect back. And obviously sometimes things get said and taken out of context, like I said. And it's never my intention to bring any type of negative attention or, throw off the focus of the team or whatever, which did not happen, by the way. We got a lot of guys in here that know me well by this point and know my intentions. No, I just want to win. I'm here to try to win a Super Bowl like everybody else is on their team. So that's really my only focus. I'm not really – the thing is with me, and I'm unapologetically me. At the end of the day, I truly do not care what people have to say. So when I'm clearing things up and talking about this stuff, a lot of times it's me protecting other people that were involved. Like, I don't ever want Jimmy to feel away, think that I didn't want him here, or I don't like him, or I don't want Josh to feel like, I post a picture with Ziggs, and then they're like, oh, is it Josh that that must be the real problem. So y'all can do that if you're that bored, like, go play Monopoly.
So there it is. There was a lot more where that came from when it comes to Davante Adams. A lot more. I mean, really, he talked to us for about 17 or 18 minutes. Very thorough answers, right? And, I mean, you heard him talk about, he wanted Aaron Rodgers. That's who he worked with. That's who he played with. But he's good with Jimmy G. He has no problem with Jimmy G. Has no problem with Josh McDaniels. Has no problem with Dave Ziegler. Is excited about the direction that the Raiders are going. Wants to help win a Super Bowl for the Silver and Black. And so if you had concern about Davante and his intentions to be with the Raiders, or if he wants to still be with the Raiders, I would put it to bed. That would be one less worry that I had on my plate if I'm you. But I've seen there's still people that are pushing back and not wanting to kind of say, okay, maybe it was, there's too much being put on it. It just kind of is what it is. But to me, it's a non-subject anymore. It's over and done with. I thought it was over and done with before, but after almost 20 minutes of Davante Adams talking to us on Thursday, for me, it's officially done deal records. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll talk about Jimmy G's rankings. Remember on Thursday I talked about him and the fact that he came in 24th, and I was shocked. I was pretty surprised. I won't say I'm disappointed, as one of our callers that you'll hear coming up in segment number 3 said. I wasn't disappointed because why would his ranking disappoint me? But I was surprised. I did think that he should have been ranked higher than 24th. But we'll talk about it coming up in segment number 2. You'll hear from Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus as well. We'll do all that in segment number 2 after I tell you about Built Bar. And every day I check out the website, built.com, to see what they got going on. They usually have some brand new flavor, some limited time flavor, and today is no different. How about this? Introducing limited edition Very Vanilla Puff and Very Vanilla Bar. What does that mean? Well, the puffs have marshmallows and the bars do not. So if you're not a marshmallow fan, get just the bar. If you are a marshmallow fan, then puff is probably the way for you to go. But Very Vanilla, isn't that pretty cool? That's a cool little flavor that they have going for you. But that's not all. They've got so many different ones to choose from. And like I said, limited editions like Red Velvet Puff, Peanut Butter Puff, Birthday Cake Puff. They've got everything covered that you want in Puff, right? If you want marshmallows, they got every style, every flavor possible. But they also have the bars. Peanut Butter Bar. They have Chocolate Coconut Granola Bar. Chocolate Peanut Butter Granola Bar. They have all kind of brownie batter bar. They've got just all kind of different options for you to choose from. There's something for everyone. I guarantee there's not a flavor that you could think of that you would want that they don't have available for you. Just check out the website like I do each and every day, built.com. When you go to checkout, Locked On 15, it's all one word. Locked On 15, it's LOCKEDON, the number 15, All one word. You'll save 15% off your order. Remember, you're getting a very good protein bar, tastes great, covered in chocolate, low in calories, low in sugar, and high in protein, and great in taste. Built.com, promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to continue conversation about Jimmy G. It's like Jimmy G's going to own the podcast today on this Friday as we close out the week, heading into the weekend, Memorial Day weekend. But I spoke on Thursday from the Pro Football Focus rankings and the fact that Jimmy G came in 24th. I was pretty shocked by that. I was shocked by that for multiple reasons. One, I was shocked by the quarterbacks that were behind Jimmy G, knowing where he was ranked and the guys behind him. Remember The Last Dance? Remember the Michael Jordan documentary, or the Bulls documentary that was the 10-part series, The Last Dance, and how, remember, everything offended Michael Jordan? And, you know, I took that personal. Remember when Michael Jordan said that was his line? I took that personal. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I would take all these guys that are ranked right behind me. I would take that personal. When you're looking at number 25, Bryce Young, rookie. 26, Jordan Love, never started before as far as a full year. 27, Sam Howell, same thing. 28, Baker Mayfield. He's the only one that has any kind of accolades in the league that's actually had real starting time behind Jimmy G. And that's number 28, Baker Mayfield, who's now with Tampa Bay. And remember, he's been in Cleveland. He's been in Carolina. He's been with the Rams. Now he's in Tampa Bay. He's the one guy that actually has some, skins on the wall that's behind Jimmy G, ranked 28th. 29, Colt McCoy. Again, he's been a backup all his career. Desmond Ridder, never been a first-year starter. He's a first-year starter in Atlanta. He's ranked at 31, and 32 is Anthony Richardson, who is a rookie. So there you go. You got 3 rookies there, and you got some backups and a couple guys that have never had an opportunity to start the season in Jordan Love and also Sam Howell and then Desmond Ridder. So I mean, again, it's just I would take that personal. First of all, that's what I would do. But I wanted to ask the questions. Because, look, this is Pro Football Focus rankings. I know that they have their own formulas. I know that a lot of it is math problems. And so I don't have a problem with your rankings if you can explain them. So Sam Monson, who's actually the one who put the piece together, he wasn't available. But Brad Spielberger, who's a guy that I've had on my show many times, he was available. And it's always great to catch up with Brad. And so I told him straight up, like, hey, I want to talk to you about these quarterback rankings. He's like, yeah, no problem. I'll come on your radio show. So he did. He popped on Thursday. And off top, I just asked him about the formula used by Sam when he was putting these rankings together.
One person will take an article and they'll go through it, look at the data, both the grades, but also underlying metrics that he obviously lays out in a bunch of the, the analyses for each player. But I will tell you this, even if one person is the author, almost every single article that's a ranking is going to get thrown into a chat, and they're going to say, solicit as much feedback as they can possibly get from the entire content wing. Even a lot of our graders that don't do content will probably chime in and share some thoughts as well. So, for this one in particular, it was kind of discussed and argued about for a couple days before it actually got published. But, yeah, it's not just a listing of our grades. It's also, film analysis and stats and stuff like that all boiled into it, and then kind of a wisdom of the crowd's approach at the very end.
So there you go. A little truth serum right there from Brad Spielberger talking about the formula used in these quarterback rankings and saying that, this is Sam's piece, but we all collaborated on it. So that was already refreshing. And then I told him straight up, and this is the final soundbite that you'll hear from Brad. I said, hey, Jimmy G ranked at 24th. I was shocked by that. And, I just said, hey, do you agree with that ranking? Why was he ranked at 24th? Like, what went into that? And like I said, did he agree with the number 24 overall? Here's Brad Spielberger on Jimmy G's rankings.
Yeah, I would bump him up ahead of, I know we had Kenny Pickett ahead of him. I'd probably swap him at 22, put Garoppolo there and swap Kenny down to 24th. The thing with him is, and this is very hard in football analysis, and it's an incomplete question, but his surrounding situation in San Francisco was about as good as a quarterback could possibly have over the last couple of years. Not just the fact he has our highest graded tackle in the history of PFF in Trent Williams and a couple other very good offensive linemen. Not just the fact he has Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, but also might have one of the best offensive play callers of all time in Kyle Shanahan. So you put all those things together, and we do try to kind of isolate, how much of this was Jimmy G and how much of it was the surrounding circumstance. I know he mentioned in that paragraph specifically, we chart big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays. Garoppolo actually has a higher turnover-worthy play rate than a big-time throw rate, which you never want to see. And then you look at other things like the average depth of target. He's obviously, what percentage of a quarterback's production is yards after the catch versus air yards. Garoppolo has always been very, very high in the yards after the catch percentage of his production. So all things like that. But I do think, you can't put a guy like Kenny Pickett, in my opinion, ahead of Jimmy G just yet.
So he said he would have put him up there where Kenny Pickett is, and Kenny Pickett was there at number 22. So it's not really much of a jump, but at least he gave a breakdown. At least he gave an explanation of why Jimmy G would have been ranked where he was ranked. And again, I looked at some of the guys, and I can look at it right here. Some of the guys that are in front of him, Kenny Pickett, as he mentioned, at 22, Mac Jones at 21. Okay, I could think that I could say that Jimmy G is probably as good as Mac Jones. Ryan Tannehill, he's a guy that I've never believed in. So him at 19, I could even see Jimmy G sliding in there. I'm not saying that Jimmy G is supposed to be top 10. I'm not even saying he's supposed to be top 15, but I would think that he would be somewhere in that 17, as I mentioned before, 17 to 20 range, where he came in at 24. So it's just, to me, it just kind of, I was like, really? So again, I was surprised. But now that he's not healthy and he's not ready for training camp, now I don't even care where he's ranked, right? And if he is the 24th ranked quarterback in the league, if that really truly is who he is, then everything that I said before about, well, he needs to play 13 to 14 games, he's going to get the ball to Davante, he's going to do this, that, and the other, offense is going to be fine. Is it? Is it going to be fine? Like, are we really confident that it's going to be fine? Because I'm questioning myself a little bit, right? He might be really good, and maybe 24 is way too low. But if we all agree, if it's all a consensus, like, okay, yeah, he's the number 24th ranked quarterback in the league, then well, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done around him. It's not going to be able to be just, oh, well, it'll be fine when he gets behind center. So that was really my big shock on Thursday. It's almost like a sticker price, right? It's like you see a car and you want to buy it, and then all of a sudden you see the sticker, and you're like, whoa, sticker shock, right? Like, I didn't expect to see that. So that was it for me. Like I said, I was pretty surprised by that. I had a lot of people hit me up and be like, stop saying that. You're looking through silver and black glasses. No, I'm not. He's never played for the Raiders. I thought he was a little bit better, and I swore that everyone called in when he was signed and said, oh, he's going to be fine. He knows Josh McDaniels' offense. He's really good, right? He's going to be fine. He'll be healthy. 49er quarterbacks always get injured, so he'll be okay, and maybe he will. But I could swear I had a lot of people calling in saying that he was going to be a pretty good quarterback. And I know my biggest question, and it's still the question I have, and obviously after we talked to head coach Josh McDaniels on Thursday, my one big, huge concern is true about his injuries. And so, I know this is a previous injury, so I'm hoping once this is good and clear, then he'll be good to go the rest of the way. But to believe that it's going to happen just like that would be kind of like believing in the tooth fairy. You know what I mean? Like believing in Bigfoot, right? It's just kind of like you're setting yourself up for failure because you haven't seen it. He's been healthy all year once in his career. So more likely than not, he won't play the whole 17-game season. I'm just, at this point, hoping he's back for training camp to give the Raiders an opportunity. But that was a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of a, the reasoning behind why he was ranked at number 24. And like I said, it made a lot more sense to me after Brad talked about it and gave kind of the mathematical breakdown that Pro Football Focus was looking at. What are your thoughts? Calls and texts, 707-654-4693. That's the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Those are coming up next as we close out on this Friday. This is the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Just got time for a couple calls and texts real quick as we close out the show, close out the week. We'll start out with Easy in L.A. He's calling to talk about Jimmy G and his Pro Football Focus rankings, and the only surprise he has about his 24th ranking is that I was surprised. Here he is, Easy in L.A.
Yo, Q, it's your boy, Easy, from L.A. Listening to your comments about the rankings here with Jimmy G. And look, the only surprise I have is that you're surprised because the moment he donned the holy silver and black, that knocks him down, 7, 10 spots automatically. The bias for the Raiders is real. You know it, I know it, and it's unfortunate. However, reset the rankings, put Jimmy G in a Niner uniform. I guarantee you he's between 12 and 15. And since he puts on the Raider uniform, automatically there's a disparaging. Let's put him down at 22. Conversely, you do the same thing with Derek Carr in a Raider uniform versus a Saints uniform, which is not a Niner uniform, but still something that is not as disparaged throughout the NFL and writers and everyone else. PFF put some rankings with some statistics, but the one they don't show is the Raiders statistics that every media news outlet that is not from or focused on the Raiders has, which is just hate. Let them hate. Let's go out there, take the entire team. Jimmy, give me 15 games. Let's pull 9 wins out. Go find the real quarterback for the future. Let's go Raiders. Out.
Easy. Thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And I understand the narrative that you're talking about. Once the quarterback or a player goes to the silver and black, then all of a sudden, they drop a few, spots on the rankings. But I mean, you heard from Brad Spielberger in segment number 2. They have a formula. They stuck to it. He would have ranked him up there at number 22, but number 22 is not much of a jump from 24. So, okay, maybe that's his range, 22 to 24. Again, maybe I just thought he was a little bit better than what they think. So, again, they have the math formula. They have that. So I'm okay. I'm willing to accept it. Like I said, I was surprised by it. That was the biggest thing, and that's why I talked about it on Thursday's show. Thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Big O Raider in the 559. It says, hey, Q, this is Big O Raider from the 559. Once again, I got to give you a shout-out for everything you do. I love what you do, and it's always a pleasure meeting up with you at the Torch. Throughout the years, I've weeded out all the sources that spread false stories and rumors that get Raider Nation all fired up, and to me, it's sad. The latest Davante drama is proof. I'm glad he finally said it straight to all the BS going on out there. Only one nation, only one family. I was born a Raider, and I'll die a Raider. I don't always agree with what the front office does, but I can see what the vision is for the future, and I give Mark Davis props for wanting to win and win bad. Raider Nation, please be patient. Trust me, I've thrown my remote against the wall many times for stupid mistakes performing on the field throughout the years, and I understand. Stay the course, Nation. It'll be worth it. With that being said, Q, if you have any information on training camp this year, I'd really appreciate it. I used to go every year religiously in Napa, and I haven't been offered the opportunity to attend in Vegas. Once again, thank you to Oscar from section 229 out. Raiders. That's Big O Raider in the 559. And thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And as far as training camp goes, last year, what I could tell you is that there were season ticket holders were allowed to be there at certain times. They got certain invites. Also, sponsors got certain invites. And then, there were some high schoolers that were invited. Some kids from the community. A few schools were out there representing, some football teams out there like Gorman and, like Liberty and some other high schools that were representing, in the area. They came out to the facility. But as far as just either season ticket holders, all season ticket holders, I don't know if it was really opened up like that. There was quite a few people, though. Multiple times throughout training camp. So what I'll do is once I get the information, once we get closer to training camp, that's when I'll get the information. I'll definitely make sure to pass that along here on the podcast. And as you mentioned, it's always great to meet up with you at the Torch. And hopefully we do a lot of that this upcoming year. Thank you so much for that text, my man. I do appreciate you. Next up, got a call from Raider Matt in the OC. He's calling to disagree with me on the kickoff rule, as I'm not a fan of the rule, and he explains why he's disagreeing with me. Here he is, Raider Matt in the OC.
Hey, what's up, Q? This is Raider Matt calling from Orange County. Wanted to call in with the fair catch rule for kickoffs, and kind of disagree with you to a certain extent on there. I agree that it's taking a skill set away from the kickers who are kicking off and are able to put the ball nice high and pin a returner within like that 10-yard line to the goal line, kind of make that decision of what am I going to do here? But a main reason why I'm disagreeing with you on the stance of the rule change is that dropping the concussion rates for players on special teams, I think, is extremely important. The kickoff is one of the most violent plays in the NFL. This guy's going full throttle downhill and colliding with each other, right? And the guys on special teams, those are the players that aren't making a life-changing amount of money, that if they're able to allow them to still have a roster spot, because obviously special teams is still going to be important. They're still going to kick off people. They're still going to try and kick off deep, make guys return it out. Obviously, the Raiders have some guys on special teams that might be able to take some to the house, so there's still going to be the kickoff, right? But allowing a returner to fair catch the ball, bring the team up to the 25-yard line, if the NFL believes that it's going to have a significant reduction in concussions, man, I'm all for it. I've personally seen friends who play college football, and some of us are completely fine. Other of us may not have the best long-term, short-term memory. And, it's a scary thing. It's a real thing. So if the NFL thinks that, you know what, allowing a guy to fair catch a ball, bring him to 25 is going to reduce concussions by over 15%, I think you said on the show. I'm all for it, man. That's my thoughts, but again, I agree with you on it's taking away a skill set, but if that skill set's taken away to provide better health for the players, I'm all for it. Raider Matt out.
Thank you for the call, my man. And yeah, the concussion part, the health, I get it. I mean, I agree 100%. You don't want anybody injured. You don't want anybody to have concussions. I get that. But with that being said, I still hate the rule, and the two can coexist. Like, I can understand the concussion part of it and still hate the rule. You know what I'm saying? Like, that those are two things that are possible. The thing is special teams, are they going to start to weed the special teams out of the game completely? Or at some point, is the kickoff going to be non-existent? If so, how many people potentially lose jobs because that's what they do? They're special teams aces, right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking of. How far does this go? Does it stop right here? Why do they have to award them the 25? Why don't they award them the 20? Why don't they award them the 15, right? I mean, why does it seem like they get a quarter of the field? They do get a quarter of the field. Why do they get a quarter of the field? Because they put their hand up and waved, right? I mean, like, if you're going to fair catch it, why not it be the 20? Why not it be the 15? Why does that have to be the 25? I mean, that's a 25. If you average 25-yard return, you're not too bad. So you're getting 25 yards just because you waved them. That's what I don't like. So, yes, concussions, I don't want anybody injured. That's why I don't mind when players want their money, because I know that it takes one play for them to end their career. But, I mean, you're taking a whole special unit and everything out of the game, and that, to me, that's not cool. So, as a matter of fact, it's funny, and I haven't even brought it up yet. I asked head coach Josh McDaniels. That was one of the things I focused in on asking him. While everybody else was talking about Jimmy G, I asked him on Thursday about the kickoff rule and what he thought about it, what his coaches thought about it, especially because they have a great kicker in Daniel Carlson. Here's Josh McDaniels talking about the kickoff rule.
The rules are the rules, and again, we have one vote out of 32, and so and sometimes we may see it differently a little bit too. That's just part of each organization in football, and so for me personally, whatever the rules are, we're going to adopt, the best philosophy that we can to try to play within the rules. And if there's an advantage we can find, to play within them, then we're going to try to do it. So obviously that's the rule we're going to adopt this year. And we're hard at work trying to figure it out. I don't know all the ins and outs right now yet in terms of seeing the different questions we had when it was proposed. If we're kicking off from the 50-yard line, is the rule still in play, or is there no fair catch then? You know what I mean? When there's a defensive penalty on a scoring play or something like that, and you choose to enforce the penalty on the kickoff, is the fair catch still applicable or not? You know what I mean? There's little things like that I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be finally written. But, like I said, there's pros and cons to all of them. There really is. I can see it both ways. Number one, I'd say is I'm for whatever makes the game safer. So if the players, if that's a play where more injuries are occurring, more head injuries are occurring, more head impact is occurring, I have no right to stand up here and say, we need to be doing more of it if that's what we're trying to avoid. Because obviously player safety and health comes first.
So he said what he's supposed to say. They're going to obviously follow the rules. They're going to do what they have to do, and I respect that. But you could tell by that answer, they're looking for a loophole. They're trying to figure out how they can, take advantage of, okay, well, this is the rule. What can we do to make sure that we're not just giving up 25 yards on average? Like, how do we, find that loophole in the rule so guys have to return the kickoff, and so we set ourselves up a little bit better and still have an opportunity to pin them back deep. You could tell by his answer that that's what he was talking about. So, Raider Matt, thanks for that call. I do appreciate you. I got time for one more text. We'll take it from David in the 209. Says, hey, Q, what's up, Raider Nation? It's David here from the 209. I got my own thoughts on the new fair catch rule. The rule was changed. The rule change was submitted with the goal of improving player safety. I understand, and analysis backs it up. But what about player safety when they have to play on a short week, possibly twice now on Thursday Night Football? Could this rule be something the NFL points to and say they are in fact taking care of the players and use it as a rebuttal when the topic of player safety and Thursday Night Flex comes up? Seems to me that league owners care about safety, except when it comes to looking after Amazon, the almighty dollar. I just hope the rule stays in 2023 only. Shout out to Ari and shout out to Grim Raider and that poem. That's David in the 209. And thanks so much for the text. And yeah, that's the thing about it. If they're really worried about player safety, why is there Thursday Night Football games? Because Amazon paid a ton of money, right? Even though they were already Thursday Night Football games there before Amazon, but Yeah, because Amazon paid a ton of money. That's why they're not going away. That's why they're trying to flex, or they're going to flex Thursday night games between weeks 13 and 18 or 13 and 17 or whatever the case may be, because, they want to make sure they have a good product so Amazon's getting their most bang for their buck, right? I mean, look, the player safety is real to a certain extent, but like you said, the almighty dollar is realer. And it's no extent. It's like that's what rules. Like Wu-Tang Clan said, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bill, y'all. Yeah, that's what the NFL's theme song is too. They just don't know it, right? So yeah, I mean, I could say miss me with the player safety stuff, but I respect the player safety. I respect the players. I know the NFL, and oh, by the way, they're also trying to avoid litigation. They know that they can get a lawsuit thrown on them anytime, quick, fast, and hurry. So they're trying to do that as well and say, no, look, we did advocate for player safety. We did eliminate this part of the game because we know that concussions happen. Like, yeah, they're trying to cover their backsides. They're no dummies, right? I mean, they make all the money they make for a reason. Like I said, they ain't no dummies. So, we'll see how it all shakes out. We'll see if it stays around for more than 1 year. My big concern is that this is just the beginning, and at some point they eliminate that kickoff or they eliminate special teams altogether and just say, hey, after a score, take the ball to 25. That will really be a bad day if that's what happens. But I would not be shocked if at some point it does happen. But that's what I got time for. David in the 209, thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. Again, that's all I got time for the week. Enjoy your weekend, Raider Nation. Of course, it's Memorial Day weekend. Most people get a 3-day weekend, including myself. I don't have my local radio show to do on Monday. I do believe there'll be a podcast here on Monday, though, so just kind of check. If you subscribe, it'll already pop up. Check it out. If it's available, I'm sure I'll do a show for Monday. Just really kind of depends on how everything goes. But the one thing I will say as we wrap up on this weekend and wrap up Friday, don't forget why we have this 3-day weekend. It's not just a 3-day weekend to hang out, have fun, and party. Remember what it is all about. Remember what Memorial Day is about. Thank you to all the troops that are obviously out there still helping us, but Memorial Day is about all the ones that lost their lives, right? And so they've done stuff that I could never imagine thinking about doing in my life. Ever. It takes a special kind of person to be in the military and defend the country and do what they do. And so there was a lot of people that sacrificed their lives for our freedoms, and also a lot of families that sacrificed their loved ones for our freedoms as well. So please salute them throughout the course of the weekend. Anyone in the military actively or a veteran, I appreciate you as well, even though I know it's not Veterans Day. So don't hit me up and be like, Q, it's not about veterans. I know, but I just respect the hell out of the military. So I really want to make sure I recognize everybody. So until Monday, Raider Nation, enjoy yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. We'll talk again. Most importantly, though, just win, baby.